Hi, welcome to Stories at Work, a show where I'll be interviewing leaders and asking them to share stories from their life, both personal and professional. Post the interview, we'll discuss how these stories can be powerfully used in a business context. Today we are meeting Sudhanshu Vats, the Group CEO of Viacom18. I began by asking him what are the three pieces of advice he would give youngsters joining the workforce.
So Indranil, the three pieces of advice I would give a youngster as he or she joins. The first piece I would say is never get carried away by the title or the size, but focus on the role. And I think many times it is the smaller roles, but more holistic roles that lead to greater learning and are very, very important. The second piece of advice I would give is that many youngsters, as they join the workforce, they seem to think that the learning is over. And I would tell them that please retain the curiosity. As much as you retain the curiosity and the ability to learn, the more you will grow in professional life. The third piece I would share with them from my experience, which I think the youngsters today perhaps do it, but still it's an advice, is to find a little bit more balance between work and life, as in personal life. So retain some of the avocations or hobbies or passions and find time for them.
So while these were very valuable pieces of advice, what are the chances that you'll remember this a month from now or even a week from now? So I asked Sudhanshu to repeat one of the pieces of advice, but this time also share a story about why he believes in it.
So let me pick up the first one, where I talk to you about don't get carried away by the role or the title, or sometimes the sheer size of the role. So let me recount my journey. So when I joined Hindustan Lever in those days, Hindustan Unilever now, as a management trainee from IIM Ahmedabad, I got posted in Calcutta as the area manager for Calcutta Metro. That, by the way, was the first time a management trainee was being assigned a metro, and it was one of the largest areas. So it was a good stint, there was a lot of learning. But immediately after that, in 95, early 95, I got posted and I moved into my brand stint, where I landed a brand which was not even existing. And in those days in levers, if you had done well and if you were doing very well, you would come on or land on to one of the larger brands. So let's say a Lux or a Lifebuoy or a Ren, some of those big brands at that point in time. So here I am, I land on to Project Pasture, where there are just a couple of files. My colleagues are all very convinced that I'm wasting my time here. But I think the amount of learning which happened, I see for me, in the next 2 years, from the time I came in and when the time I moved out, when there were two brands on the shelves, was enormous. So here we were handling a brand or a product which was based on sodium hypochlorite. And bleach, as you know, is a tough substance to handle. It is a tough substance to store, basically in terms of packaging and how do you take this forward and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of work we needed to do on development. So therefore I worked with a lot of R&D guys to understand how do we handle bleach. The second thing is, because it was bleach and as per Government of India, it came under the Department of Insecticides, we needed to do a lot of trips to Delhi and understand this category. And I remember at that point in time, Ashok Gupta, who was the legal manager, who's now the head of legal for Aditya Birla Group, as you know, I and Ashok would do lots of trips to Delhi. And the amount of learnings and my understanding of law, thanks to Ashok here, because of those long trips and understanding these pieces, were very, very useful. Thirdly, because we set up our own plant here. So it was a third-party plant. So there's a gentleman called Naresh Bhai who put up the plant in Silvassa. And the train journeys which I would take from Bombay to Vapi or to travel to Gujarat, and the understanding of setting up a plant from scratch with this gentleman, albeit on a small scale, but the nuances of doing that, the permissions needed, what you needed, how do you go about doing things, how does the first thing come across. So all in all, if you look at it, the overall exposure as a general manager to be able to look at things in a holistic fashion and to build something from scratch at that young age, which is we're talking about mid-20s or late 20s, was very, very vital, very useful. And many times when I reflect on my journey today as a CEO, I think a lot of my learnings have come from that stint. And that stint I value the most. And if I had got carried away conventionally that, I got written off, I don't have a big brand to go on to, this is not the role I should be doing, this is not commensurate to my performance or to my education or my skills, I think it would have been a big mistake. And I think that's what I would leave the youngsters with. Evaluate the role and the quality of role more than anything else, more than the size, more than the title, more than its reputation in the organization or outside of it.
You will agree that the chances that this time you will remember it has dramatically increased. That is the power of stories. You can learn about this and more from my book, Stories at Work. Meet you for the next episode very soon.